Please do not record video or audio of this event. A recording of this forum will be available in its entirety after the forum and will have a closed caption option available in multiple languages. Thank you to MCN6 for the production and recording of this event. We ask that campaign buttons or t-shirts are not worn in this room and no campaign signs or literature are distributed during this event. Please remain as quiet as possible while the candidates are speaking so that everyone can hear the discussion. We also ask that you hold your applause until the end of the forum so that candidates will have the maximum time to respond to your questions. Finally, this is the time when you silence all of your electronic devices. Ward 13 is home to some of the city's most active parks and recreation areas, including Bede-Makaska, Lake Harriet, Grass Lake, and Minnehaha Creek. It also includes thriving neighborhood business districts with a mix of specialty shops, neighborhood stores, and restaurants. Ward 13 has the highest voter turnout in the city. Residents are active in local parks and schools, as well as their neighborhood associations. Both candidates on the ballot were invited to the forum and are with us this evening. They are, in alphabetical order, Bob again Carney Jr. and Lene Palmisano. We thank the candidates in advance for engaging in a respectful and civil discourse. We have timekeepers sitting in the front row so that each candidate has the same amount of time to respond to the questions. Following the opening statements of 1.5 minutes, each candidate will have up to 1.5 minutes to answer each question, and then 1 minute to make a closing statement. The timekeepers will hold up a card when there are 30 seconds, 15 seconds remaining, and then a stop card when the time is up. We ask that the candidate finish their sentence and stop at that point. We expect this forum to last approximately 1 hour. Questions are based on community concerns and were developed by our committee, submitted in advance from co-sponsor surveys, and solicited from the community at large. During the forum, we will take written questions from the audience until 6:45, so up until 15 minutes before the end of the forum. A volunteer will gather the questions and hand them to our question facilitators and then to the moderator. We ask that the questions be clear, pertinent to the issues at hand, within the scope of the office, and made in the form of a question. Think Jeopardy. Question, not a statement. All questions are carefully reviewed and rewritten when necessary to make sure that they are directed to all candidates, forward-looking, not biased, and not of a personal nature. We also look for a balance of topics that affect all of us both locally and in the city. To get to as many topics as possible, we will limit the number of questions in each category. We may consolidate questions of the same general topic. If you feel your question was not addressed, please follow up with the candidates after the forum. Finally, all submitted questions are the property of the League of Women Voters, Minneapolis. Now, let's get started. Let me introduce you to the candidates. For the candidate's opening statement, we ask that they address the question, why are you running and what are your qualifications? Again, each candidate will have up to 1.5 minutes to respond. It was determined by drawing numbers that the first candidate to speak is Bob again Carney Jr. From now on, the order will rotate, so we change who goes first each time. So, candidate Carney Jr., you have 1.5 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you. I'm Bob again Carney Jr. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and the other sponsors for putting this together and Linnea for participating. I'm taking a kind of an unusual approach to this election. I want to explain a little bit about it. My only promise is that if I'm elected, I will not take the oath of office. What that means is that Lene would continue to serve because a city council member in Minneapolis continues to serve until a successor is qualified. And if I don't take the oath, that's never. Now, there are some real advantages to this. What I'm trying to do is take a different approach to elections. Typically, the approach everyone takes is, I want to get elected. My goal is to advance ideas. And by promising that I won't actually take office, I'm giving all of you, with the option of ranked choice voting, the chance to vote for me and my ideas and support them, and then vote for Lene, who will take office. I think this is a truly innovative approach. I'm looking forward to elaborating more on it as we go along. I'm going to deviate quite a bit from the questions because I want to introduce my own questions. My purpose in running is to advocate some new and big ideas for Minneapolis and our larger community. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Palmisano.
Hi everyone, I'm Lene. I'm proud to be your council member since 2014. I've lived in the 13th Ward 26 years. My husband Matthew, who's here along with my father tonight, my husband Matthew and I find incredible joy in raising our two sons here in Minneapolis public schools, in our public parks, and beyond. Long before running for office, I was serving our community on my neighborhood council, a founder of a local farmers market, a running coach at Southwest High School, and a founder of Navigate, which is a college immigrant access program for undocumented students. You are all my neighbors. If elected to another term, I'll be the only member who served on the city council prior to 2020, and only Jamal Osman and I prior to 2022. This experience matters. It gives me deep connection to our community. It gives me rapport with staff and other elected city officials and other levels of government. It also gives me historical knowledge of going through challenging times. The decisions I make are not based on whims. They're about where the city has been and where we're going. I don't seek headlines and I don't start fights on social media. I'm serving you. I'm helping residents solve issues. I'm engaging students on how local government improves their lives. And I'd be honored to continue to represent this community.
Thank you. We'll now move to the questions from the live audience and those submitted in advance. Again, candidates will have up to 1.5 minutes to answer each question. We'll begin with candidate Palmisano. What do you think are the two most crucial issues facing Ward 13, and how would you address them?
I'll start by saying I approach my job as a citywide position. I'm elected by those in Southwest Minneapolis, but I make decisions for the good and benefit of the city of Minneapolis as a whole and long term. To that end, things that the 13th Ward, the two most pressing issues in the ward, I would say the first and foremost is affordable housing. That means a lot of things. Affordable housing for first-time homeowners, a diverse group of people living here. Something that we still have on every block is a diversity of ages of people that live on our blocks. I see that in every block party that I crash, in the block party that I get to host every year. It is really special, but we have to work harder on doing more with affordable housing, and in order to do that, it has to be financed that way, it has to be zoned that way. I think affordable housing is one of our biggest issues. Another rather pernicious issue is that we have amenities down here that are used by everybody in our city lakes. And to that end, I think water quality and the long-term health of our lakes and natural resources are pretty essential.
Thank you. Candidate Carney Jr.
Ward 13 it was the subject of a big article in the Star Trib recently. It's a unique ward. We have a very heavy voter turnout. This is a very highly educated ward. So I look at Ward 13 as a ward that's capable of looking beyond the 13th Ward in particular to the city and more broadly. Consequently, I want to address a couple of issues that I think we have an opportunity to raise, especially if you vote for me. One of them is an idea that I have that downtown Minneapolis should be entirely privatized. Right now, we have the Mall of America, which began as an entirely private institution. There are no public spaces in it. And as a result, just for starters, there's a tremendous ability to ensure public safety and a friendly atmosphere. If we do the same thing in downtown Minneapolis, privatizing the entire area and licensing rights to a nonprofit corporation, we can have both a far safer downtown, and we can also have all kinds of things organized that would make Minneapolis a unique city in the United States and would attract a lot of people to come to Minneapolis to see the amenities that this private organization is offering and to see what a truly safe city could be. That's one of the things I'll be pushing for. Thank you.
Thank you. For the next question, candidate Carney Jr., you'll go first. How will you engage with residents and small businesses to solicit feedback and involve them in decision-making?
Again, I'm taking a different approach to this campaign in this office. By not taking the oath of office, I'm ensuring that Lene is going to continue to be our council member. More generally, I am happy to talk to anybody about ideas. And so what I would like to see happen is a growing conversation about the ideas that I'm introducing in this campaign. One of them is privatization of downtown, which I just talked about. Another one is climate control. I am in favor of having a system where we're going to control the climate not by regulation, but by ensuring that that areas can be maintained by an organization such as the one that I've described, so that we can have a truly good climate, first in downtown Minneapolis, but also throughout the area. One of the real competitive advantages I think we have as a city is the ability to build and maintain climate-controlled spaces where we can show people what can be done in an urban area to have areas that are quarter square mile, that are nature, and that have unique protections for our climate.
Candidate Palmisano?
It was about residents and small businesses.
How will
and
you
what?
engage residents and small businesses to solicit feedback and involve them in decision-making?
Thank you. Here's how I've made decisions at City Hall. You need to know what's going on the ground. You need to hear from people that are generally interested in the topic and those that are most deeply impacted by a decision that the city's about to make. Maybe that's a land use application. Maybe that's a small business license. Maybe it's something else like a franchise fee. You have to know what's going on. You also have to look to the advice of experts. We have a lot of expert city staff. They come to the city to work, some of them at the very top of their career, and have a lot of forward-thinking ideas. I think it's important to hear their advice, not always take their advice, because that's why we're elected, is to be that balance of working with and reaching out to residents and small businesses. In my own world here in the 13th Ward, I feel like at this point I have a lot of deep knowledge of the people around here. In other parts of the city, when decisions are being made, I'm relying more on community feedback processes. We have done a better job, I think, since I first got to City Hall, of doing really good approaches, whether it's, yes, there's online surveys, but there's also meetings, but there's also signage out in a neighborhood asking for feedback in broad ways. We engage in many languages and in many different, through many different types of cultural standards.
Thank you. Candidate Palmisano, you'll go first for the next question. How should the city respond when ICE or other federal agencies endanger the safety, dignity, and constitutional rights of immigrant communities? And what specific changes to the Separation Ordinance would you support, if any?
it is not, fears around immigration enforcement are real and justified by our federal agents. The city of Minneapolis has a separation ordinance. That means that all employees, and yes, our police department, don't ask individuals about their immigration status when responding to any incident. If they are, whether they are the victim needing to call in asking for help, or whether they are potentially a suspect of a crime. That is information we don't hold, so we don't have that information to turn over to federal authorities. However, as seen on June 3rd, our communities, I believe, are safer when MPD comes to de-escalate tense situations and acts as a barrier between residents and federal agents. I think MPD should assist with crowd control operations where ICE is present. I also think that keeping local residents safe is the work of local law enforcement, and MPD has an obligation to respond to calls for service regardless of the circumstances. It is important we're able to continue to work with other jurisdictions and federal jurisdictions for important things like drug enforcement, like researching the swatting incident in the ward back on Sunday. We use other federal law enforcement for other kinds of things.
Candidate Carney Jr.
ICE is obviously a very powerful organization, and one of the big concerns that I have is that President Trump will escalate the situation by invoking the Anti-Insurrection Act. This is a major danger. I think that the keys to the Minneapolis Police Department participating effectively are first to use our network of hearing what's going on and being first on the scene, not necessarily even with a police presence, but working with other organizations that are advocates for nonviolence and serving the community. I think the key is to be on top of what's going on and to be able to be there first. One of the biggest advantages of that is that it gives ICE less of a reason to get involved in the first place. If situations are kept under control by addressing the legitimate concerns of citizens, then I think that it's far less likely that situations are going to escalate to the point where ICE sees an opportunity to become involved. So I think the key issues are listening very carefully to what's going on, using our network of communication with all kinds of groups in the public, and being there first and avoiding things developing into a dangerous situation.
Thank you. Candidate Carney Jr., you're up first for the next question. How will you collaborate with fellow city council members and the mayor to benefit the city as a whole? Give examples of working with those you disagree with to achieve shared goals.
Well, again, this question doesn't really apply to me because I won't be taking the oath. Lene's going to be doing the job. So this gives me some unique opportunities to engage with all of the people and organizations that you've identified in different ways, taking a look at potentially innovative solutions to our challenges. One of them is, again, privatization. The key to the success of the Mall of America is it is entirely a private organization. If we privatize downtown and have an organization that we licensed to manage all of those spaces in downtown, the fact that that will produce a much safer downtown is only the beginning. It's an opportunity also to develop all kinds of innovative solutions that can be managed by this organization and that can make Minneapolis a unique draw for people. We've had a lot of trouble competing with the Mall of America. We can't do that on economic grounds anymore. But we can produce an environment that is uniquely appealing in a lot of ways by having privatization of downtown. That's what I'm advocating that we study. And I'm not saying that we should launch into it immediately. As we study this, we're going to find issues that emerge. But I think the key to a successful downtown is to privatize it, where downtown has the same advantages that the mall has in terms of maintaining a safe, friendly environment.
Candidate Palmisano.
In 2021, Andrea Jenkins and I served as council leadership, and we had a very functional working relationship with the mayor's office. That sure doesn't mean that the three of us saw things the same way. We rarely actually started at a point of agreement, but our trust and commitment to one another and respect for one another and seeing each other's different perspectives in a sincere way helped us, the three of us, make good decisions together and come up with, I mean, clearly we needed council involved in it, but decisions together about how we would try and move something forward. Different than my colleagues, I don't take the most extreme position on an issue simply for the sake of creating disagreement. I think my colleagues do that. I don't slam the mayor on social media when we disagree. We disagree perhaps more than people in this room think. I think this civility is something that is sorely lacking in today's politics, here in Minneapolis and also across the country. Examples of ways that I have worked with those I disagree with. I deeply disagreed recently with my colleague, Councilmember Cashman, on her approach to the parking ramps contract, and it was going to end. I worked with her on a legislative directive to help us take a broader look at how our parking downtown is used and how we might be able to use it in different ways in the future.
Thank you. Our next couple questions will be related to public safety. Candidate Palmisano, we'll start with you. Residents are concerned with the gun violence in our community. What specific policies would you support to prevent gun violence and respond to citizens' need for safer communities?
I'm a city council member, and I would support almost any gun regulation and control opportunity that I had to do, but I don't have that local authority. I think it's really important in working on how we educate the public and work with the red flag laws that we have to reduce potential gun violence for people exhibiting signs of violent behavior and who have access to or already have weapons. A couple years ago, I lobbied at the state capitol. This was when the DFL had a trifecta, and I was lobbying on behalf of the city officially to try and ban guns in public buildings. That meant City Hall, but it also meant our park and rec centers. It meant libraries. We don't have that authority and control, and with a DFL trifecta, we got a public hearing on it, but it did not pass or anything. I have held people in our hearts very publicly recently in response to the Annunciation mass shooting in Vigil. I have led my community, I think, in how we both show respect for everybody that's been a victim of that tragedy, and also ways that we can try and move forward and forge some kind of agreement for future gun legislation in our state.
Candidate Carney Jr.
I think we need to start with the Second Amendment, which in my view has been badly misunderstood and badly mischaracterized by the Supreme Court. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right to keep and bear arms, the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed. This has been interpreted as an individual right, and I believe that is fundamentally wrong. What is being protected is the right, originally, the right of states to maintain state militia to resist the danger of encroachment of a too powerful federal government. That is what is being protected with reference to the security of a free state. the right to bear arms is not an individual right. It is a collective right that states are empowered to regulate by the Second Amendment. And so we need to look at gun control in that context. States have both a right and a duty, I believe, to regulate guns and to ensure that all gun ownership is in the context of participating in a well-regulated militia. It is not an individual right. It is a right originally of states to safeguard states' rights against a dangerous federal government. More generally, it is a right to maintain an armed public force that can protect our society when needed. It's not an individual right. This is a fundamental error, I believe, in how it's been interpreted.
Candidate Carney Jr., you'll go first for the next question. Would you support changing or continuing the current community-driven model for public safety that includes neighborhood-based safety groups? If you support the current model, how would you recommend vetting, overseeing, and monitoring these groups?
I think that it is a major area of progress that we have these other organizations that can be both alternatives to the police and then also can work cooperatively with the police. This goes back to what I was saying earlier in terms of the police force in Minneapolis versus ICE. The key to maintaining local control and not giving ICE an excuse to become involved is to be on top of what's going on in the community and to be working at an early stage, including with organizations like these various community groups that are not police, but that are able to identify what's going on with conflicts that are in the community and start to address the underlying causes and issues with those conflicts without escalating it to a situation or a context in which police involvement becomes appropriate. So I think that these new organizations are a very healthy development. We should support them, and we should work as much as we can to coordinate what the police do with what these organizations do.
Candidate Palmisano.
Could you repeat the question? It's about
Yeah.
Yes, I support continuing our neighborhood-based safety groups, and was there another part of that question?
Yes, if you support the current model, how would you recommend vetting, overseeing, and monitoring these groups?
We actually had a great 13th Ward forum on this afternoon. We spent an hour talking about it with the Director of Neighborhood Safety, but things that we have in different ways than we've had in the past and are part of this public safety ecosystem involve group violence intervention, youth group violence intervention, behavioral crisis response, violence prevention teams, safety ambassadors, embedded social workers, and 911. All of these things, I think, is what the person writing it meant by these neighborhood safety groups. They are led by the Neighborhood Safety Department and Amanda Harrington. I think it's important to have them be geography-based because that's where the relationships are. If you are working without any ability to remove civil rights and arrest a person as a tool, and I'm glad they're not, you need to have the tools of relationships to impact safety in a particular area. It has been a challenge sometimes to get all of the areas of need in our city covered. Director Harrington spoke very eloquently, more than me, about how it was a public health-based model and a public health-based approach to violence. It's important for us to have key performance indicators that we've done a lot of work with, getting a lot of paying not just for outputs, but for performance and for success through that performance over time.
We're going to shift gears to a set of questions about housing and homelessness. Candidate Palmisano, we'll start with you. What, if anything, do you think the city should do to regulate the growth of bigger apartment and condo buildings within this area, unless they are for affordable housing?
I think people in this room probably know this. Not last term, a few terms ago now, we had a big old city fight about city stuff. I can't wait to get back to the classics, but one of them was the 2040 plan, the city's comprehensive plan. I think that plan, I was the one vote against it, by the way, at the end of the day, but I did a lot of things to make it better. I think the 2040 plan has absolutely the right goals in it. The goals include affordable housing. The goals include growth in every neighborhood in our city. The goals are about doing better by way of climate. I don't think we have the right plan for that. I would actually like to see more growth of apartments and condos in more parts of the city. That doesn't mean taking all of the controls off. That does not mean doing what the 2040 plan did, that I objected to because I didn't think it would reach our affordable housing goals, which is like stripe zoning, you know, like 3-story buildings allowed, but really not many being proposed. I, at that time, and I look forward to taking a fresh look at this, was more about more node development of having higher intensity in places that buses are going. Buses are transiting people to that are major activity centers in our city. But I don't look to specifically limit the growth of apartments or condos in our area.
Candidate Carney Jr.
I think we should definitely emphasize high-volume, multi-family housing along transit routes. However, I think that another opportunity that we have is to develop what I see as a new kind of approach to triplexes. And in particular, I've got a book that I'm rolling out on this. The idea would be to have triplexes that are primarily underground, that look on the outside to be like a single-family home, to have the same amount of green space available as our single-family homes do. But if you study this carefully, you find that we can actually sustain a community that would be primarily triplexes, but the triplexes would be underground, and the vehicles moving in and out of the triplexes can actually move under the sidewalks and be lifted up to street level on boulevards. So what I'd like to see is rethinking what triplexes can be. You have 3 units of occupancy in a triplex. You can have a much greater density down in Southwest Minneapolis in particular, if we emphasize the development of triplexes, but don't make them look like McMansions. Make sure that most of it's underground and that it looks like current housing that's in the neighborhood.
Thank you. Candidate Carney Jr., we'll start with you for the next question. Homes that have been purchased solely as vacation rentals, such as Airbnb or VRBO, can have negative impacts on the rental market and also cause problems for neighbors. What, if anything, could be done to better regulate and manage this activity?
This is a pretty technical question. I'm not sure what the extent of the impact of this is in Minneapolis. So let me start by saying that I haven't really thought about this very much, and no great ideas come to mind. In general, I think that we, again, should concentrate on trying to figure out how to have more triplexes. That occupies the same space as a single-family home, but you can have a significant amount of additional density, and aesthetically, the neighborhood would look very much as it does now. But I have to really kind of pass on this one. I haven't thought about it much, and I don't have any particular good ideas on it. I want to add one other thing. I like what Lene said a little while back about working with people and maintaining good relations with people regardless of whether you agree with them or not. I think that she has done an outstanding job on that, and it makes a big difference in how the council functions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Candidate Palmisano.
Thank you. Homes purchased strictly as vacation rentals, frankly, take housing units out of our city for people to live in. Yet how the city should go about regulating that is challenging. To better regulate and manage, one of them is about the safety issues of Airbnb rentals. We have a lot of reg services training that goes with having a hotel license and having staff trained to do things like recognize sex trafficking rings, recognize drug rings. And when there is an Airbnb that, yes, now we do require a license for it, but it's not regulated in the same way. There aren't people checking in, and there's not training for staff or people who might be going in to clean, to look for those things and to make sure it's continuing to provide a safe environment. There are considerations being proposed, like a tax that would feed into the tourism industry kinds of taxes that we are putting on hotel room night stays. I'm not sure where that's going to go because it was just floated, I think, by Meet Minneapolis. Before the Super Bowl, I know that's a long time ago, I raised this question of how we better regulate this to our city attorney, and at the time she said it was more about the second B in Airbnb. You also can't regulate any of the food or some of the other kinds of environments, but providing vacation rentals right in the middle of communities have some benefits, but I think in my experience, they've greatly impacted the neighbors that make it their home.
Thank you. Candidate Palmisano, we'll start with you for the next question. Do you think Minneapolis's efforts to address encampments are working effectively? If so, why? And if not, what would you change?
Yeah, I think we have an evolving approach to homeless encampments, quite frankly. I also believe that homeless encampments, let me be really clear, are a public health and safety emergency, both for those living in them or going to them every day and those that are trying to live around them. They're not a safe place. They're not a safe place to live. They're not a sanctuary. They are usually a drug-based, market-based environment. The city of Minneapolis, I think, should immediately continue to address the formation of encampments and prevent the concentration of violent crime that comes with it. There is a statistic that says in a certain number of days, about a third of encampments literally blow up. It's because of the storage of large amounts of propane in these environments and fires and things being lit. They literally blow up. The city itself is not a housing provider. Hennepin County is the housing provider. I think that over time, and certainly during the pandemic, we've learned to work a lot better with the Hennepin County service providers to do a better job in coordinating together. We really work hard in partnership with Hennepin County to support access to housing and all of the wraparound services that go along with it. And I think this has been a successful approach to unsheltered homelessness. Hennepin County is one of the few places in the nation that has successfully decreased unsheltered homelessness.
Thank you. Candidate Carney Jr.
Encampments per se are a disaster in a number of ways. I agree basically with what Lene has said. The key to addressing this is not only to prohibit them, but we also need to offer people a place to stay. And that means, to me, 100 square feet of dry, clean space. And it doesn't seem to me that it should be very difficult to figure out how to start building these spaces, especially on platforms above transportation arterials. We simply need to provide an alternative to people who are homeless. And we need to be able to tell them, look, you can live here. This is safe. We will keep you safe. But you cannot live in an encampment that is unregulated with all the problems that it has. Drugs, guns, just for starters. So the real key to addressing encampments is to be able to provide enough of these 100 square foot livable spaces, and we need to do whatever is necessary to come up with that, because if we don't, we're going to have encampments.
Our next couple questions are related to neighborhoods. Candidate Carney Jr., we'll start with you for this one. How will you support and retain small businesses and local entrepreneurs and help them address barriers such as construction, crime, and city regulations?
You know, I've looked at employment and population maps of the Twin Cities, and it is really striking what an employment desert all of Minneapolis is, except the university, downtown, and a few other areas. The fact is that there is a huge shortage of jobs everywhere but those areas. And to be realistic, I think that it's happening for a reason. It's being driven by socioeconomic factors. So I think it's unrealistic to try to think that outside of those areas we're going to actually be able to provide significant employment. What we can do is provide a much better transportation link to surrounding suburbs. And the key to that is that people coming in from the suburbs, they come in the morning and they go out in the afternoon. If you're trying to provide work opportunities for Minneapolis, people go out in the morning and they come in the afternoon. Well, they're going in opposite directions. So let's use the same transportation system to be giving people in Minneapolis an opportunity to go to jobs and work in the suburbs. The vehicles are already going from point A to B. Let's just give people the opportunity to ride them to jobs.
Candidate Palmisano?
I want to emphasize something that Bob just said. Bob is a big user of public transportation, and I've been really impressed to hear all the different ways that you use public transportation. And I wonder, Bob, if we maybe should have listened to you a little bit more when I first met you around the Green Line conversation. But the question being about supporting and retaining small businesses and local entrepreneurs and helping to address crime and city regulations. You know, part of that is being a very accessible office when there are reports of crime. There's a regular transit user in our community who said, as someone who has always taken public transit, he no longer feels safe at 8th and Hennepin downtown. He commutes downtown for work. It's really important and then you go to 8th and Hennepin and you realize there aren't any open small businesses really around there. There's not a lot of activity there. There is a lot of activity. It's not healthy downtown environment type activity. And so it is about getting a hold of Metro Transit, getting MPD focused on that stop, which they have been, and we've seen a lot of improvements. But part of supporting and retaining businesses is helping their employees and their customers to get around well. I think that things that we've done that are showy, like Dinner du Nord this past summer, really shows off our city. We invested about $25,000 through a competitive small business grant and got $3 million of showing off of our city for businesses. I have a lot more to say, but I have to stop.
Candidate Palmisano, we'll start with you for the next question. Minneapolis has lost revenue in the downtown corridor, which is a reason for the increase in property taxes. How would you balance the budget without raising property taxes? And what would you prioritize if cuts need to be made?
Yeah, that's a big question. That's going to take more than 90 seconds as well. How do we not raise business taxes when our labor costs are going up? That's hard, and it requires less service, less things that we're doing as a city to try and achieve that net zero gain, right? The fact of the matter is that property values are depressed in downtown Minneapolis, and it's part of our job to help that evolve and get better again. Part of that evolving and getting better again is about changing the larger, more empty buildings downtown that are like World War II era that could become residences that have windows that can open, changing them into housing. Downtown is one of our fastest growing areas of our whole city. It really can come back. So part of it is helping to increase the property values again there. Some of it is about making hard choices about our city budget and what we're going to cut or what we're going to do without. And we really need to stop, in my opinion, taking on pet projects and really reduce our ideas down to the programs we know work and are proven effective. I would have maybe taken a slightly different approach to the city budget as the mayor, but this is the budget that we have to work with now.
Candidate Carney Jr.
Again, I come back to the idea of privatization. Downtown Minneapolis is a tremendous opportunity to be able to have a public benefit corporation formed and to license all space that is currently public space to that corporation. A couple of things happen right away. That organization is in a far better position to ensure that it will be a safe environment and a friendly environment because they can do everything that the Mall of America is doing. They can also work on figuring out ways of developing all kinds of unused or underutilized space in Minneapolis by buying it. And here is the key point. None of this is coming from public money. This is coming from a nonprofit public benefit corporation that is paying license fees to elements of government to have the right to do this. The more that they can come up with in terms of new ideas and new things that can be done downtown, the more revenue will come into downtown. This does not cost anything in terms of government money. And that's one of the reasons that I think this is such a unique approach, and we really need to study it to figure out how this approach of privatization, rather than all kinds of government and nonprofits trying to come up with little Band-Aid solutions, I think this is the way to go.
Thank you. Candidate Carney Jr., we'll start with you next. This is what we call a lightning round question. So I'm gonna ask the question. I'm gonna give you a set of 4 response options, and you'll pick the option which best reflects.
Oh, I got a
your
headache
position.
already.
So the question is, which concept do you favor for the George Floyd Square that will both keep it as a memorial site and address the residents' and businesses' concerns about transit and safety? The 4 options are a flexible open plan that keeps the intersection open to vehicle and public transit traffic but closed for public events, a transit mall that restricts through traffic except bus service while still allowing for local access and emergency vehicles, a pedestrian plaza that restricts through traffic, creating a pedestrian-only zone to be used as a memorial and public space, or option number 4 is undecided.
Boy, option 4 is a temptation. Frankly, I do like option 1, though. I think that it's important to maintain transit and bus traffic going through the area. It's important for people to have access to it. But I don't necessarily think that we ought to emphasize developing this.
Sorry,
as a
I'm going to
memorial.
cut you off. It's a lightning round question.
Oh,
so
lightning round.
You're
Okay.
sticking to
Okay.
the option that you pick.
I barely got raining.
Thanks for reminding me. I was just going along with you. Candidate Palmisano, do you need me to repeat anything?
$2.2 million and 17,000 hours of community engagement tell me that the flexible open plan is what we need to do.
Thank you. All right, I think we've got time for a couple more questions. The next couple questions are going to be related to the environment. So Candidate Palmisano, we're starting with you. How will you actively support efforts to meet the city's professed goal of 70% clean energy by 2030?
Well, I think that I do. How do I actively support it? I support the changes that we've made to Bryan Avenue South as one way that we have looked to do better by way of lots of different carbon and cleaning of our city on that street and others. I am supportive of what is about to be a year-long project in the 13th Ward to make major environmental gains in the area around 53rd and New York. I actively support our Climate Legacy Initiative plan. That was something that we took 18 months of work with people in the community to figure out how we could get the money for, develop programs, deploy those programs, and get environmental gains in our city and address that through an equity lens that helps those who are in distressed communities first. I am a little bit frustrated. I'll try to stay open-minded about this increase of the franchise fee again in just over a year. Because we don't think we now have enough money in that program, but that program in getting more money would impact those in those distressed communities the most. So I'll try to find that balance, but I have and will continue to actively support our climate initiatives. Part of that is our transportation action plan and having things like safe transit.
How much time do we have? No, I'm just
For
trying
this
to.
one, you've got a minute and a half.
I'm just asking, a minute and a half. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I have kind of a unique approach to improving the environment and transportation. What I would like to do is have small modules on top of vehicles that would capture the emissions of the vehicle. And it is a mistake to view this merely as pollution. What we actually have is a resource. We can recycle the emissions from vehicles into hydrogen, carbon, and the byproduct that's left over is water. So if we simply capture what is being emitted and distribute it to a system of reprocessing facilities, not only can we eliminate pollution, but we can also recycle the same things that we're burning right now to get energy, and we can burn them again to get more energy with no harm to the environment, no pollution. So I think that's the approach that we need to take for transit and transportation. We need to have systems on vehicles that simply capture the emissions and then recycle the hydrocarbons into products that can again be used as liquid or other fuel and burned. Let's just make this a cycle with no pollution going into the environment. That's my solution to this.
All right, I'm going to ask one more question. Candidate Kearney Jr., we'll start with you. Research shows that high-quality after-school and summer programs have many benefits, especially for at-risk youth. What specifically would you do to make them more available?
Well, I am a Minneapolis substitute teacher, and I see a lot of what is going on. I think that the key elements here are, first of all, to have organized spaces after school where programmed activities can be run, and where students can also have more flexible time, including some basically recreation. But in addition to that, we need to rethink our transportation system to be able to provide transportation to students that are staying later after school. Now, right now, you typically have 2 bus routes in the morning and 2 bus routes in the afternoon. I've driven as a public school bus driver. What we can do if we have a longer afternoon is that we can have 4 bus routes running each afternoon, and students using those bus routes can have both a lot more flexibility in terms of time and a lot more flexibility in terms of destinations. So I think the key is to have a longer afternoon and a transportation system where we're running 4 routes instead of 2 routes. Candidate
Palmisano?
Well, the first thing I would say, as I look at my son in the audience, is that you can get people slightly older involved in coaching and mentoring young kids. I pushed my son to be a volunteer staffer at the Southwest Super Summer Program, which is one of the most affordable. You can even go, if you don't have any money, to this summer program for kids. And kids that are just a little bit older do an amazing job at helping younger kids get together, gain different types of expertise. Maybe it's in sports, maybe it's in Pokemon cards. You know, first of all, my son is really good at that. I think there's a lot of people like him in the community that just have to be encouraged to give back a few years younger than themselves. I was a coach. That's the approach that we took when I coached at Southwest High School. Bob is a substitute teacher. He uses his time to help expand kids' minds in different ways. Transit, yes, safe transit. Teaching young teenagers how to use transit safely will get more users and more safe users in that kind of an environment. I'm a former coach, I'm a mom, I'm a soccer booster, but I'm also a city council member, and I think the important role from a city council member standpoint is in not parks or school board, et cetera, is how do we help kids in Minneapolis show up to school ready to learn? And there is tremendous need in that space from a housing perspective, from a road safety perspective, et cetera.
Thank you. Candidates will now have up to 1 minute for their closing statements. Candidate Palmisano, we'll start with you.
Thank you. First, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. But mostly I want to thank Bob for being part of this forum. Bob, you always help us think differently, and you always bring new ideas to the table. Bob has more electoral experience than I do. Let's be clear. And his is a noble cause. It's a noble cause to run with a different party ticket to another viewpoint in a largely dominant DFL city. And thank you all for being here tonight. Minneapolis is one of the votingest cities in the entire nation, and the 13th ward, maybe more narrowly than they make do in the paper, is the votingest part of our city. There's a lot of votingest parts of our city, but you are all a testament to that. You might already know this about me, but I don't like campaigning. I'm here to serve the people of Minneapolis. My good friend and mayor, Jacob Fry, often introduces me as the worst politician and the best public servant.
Thank you.
He's not wrong. I'm here to do the work.
Thank you. Candidate Carney Jr.
Thank you. I'd like to thank both the League of Women Voters and also Linnea. You've done a tremendous job, I think, on the City Council. And your ability and commitment to work with people of different points of view is a very necessary element to what you're doing. I'm very grateful for that. In these brief closing time, I am a substitute teacher, and part of what I'm doing here today is preparation to educate students about both how they can participate in the political process and what can be accomplished by introducing and publicizing new ideas through the public process of elections. And I'm looking forward to continuing this going forward. We have no shortage of elections coming up. And so I'm Bob again Carney Jr., and the again stands for the fact that I'm, some people call me a perennial candidate. I prefer frequent filer. Thank you everybody for participating and being here tonight.
Thank you.
Experience.
On behalf of all the co-sponsors, I thank the candidates for being part of the democratic process by running for office and for being willing to serve our community. We hope this forum has helped all of you as voters make an informed decision. Remember, we use ranked choice voting for this election, where you get to vote for candidates in order of your preference, allowing you to rank your vote first choice, second choice, and third choice. This method can allow your vote to count toward another candidate if your favorite candidate loses. If your first choice candidate is eliminated, your vote is moved to your second choice. To learn more about ranked choice voting, please visit our fair vote table outside this room. We also thank you, the audience, for your participation in this forum and the democratic process. We challenge you to think about three things you can do now to further civic dialogue about the issues and get your friends and neighbors to participate in this important election. Nonpartisan information about candidates and about voting is available at vote411.org. Early voting for the general election began on Friday, September 19th, and will end on Monday, November 3rd. A video recording of this forum will be available unedited for viewing on the League of Women Voters Minneapolis website. That's lwvmpls.org. Editing of this video is authorized only for official media reporting. Footage cannot be used in campaign publicity. The recording is the property of the League of Women Voters Minneapolis.org. At this point, you can show your appreciation for the candidates by your applause. Thanks, everyone. Please vote. Your vote is your voice and your power.
I wish I had a chance. I didn't have a chance to go on about your downtown.